You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
It's 7 p.m. Pacific time and 10 p.m. Eastern time, which means it's that time. It's Mission Log Live time. And it's a good thing I'm no longer a cadet, or I wouldn't be able to wear my Hawaiian shirts for the dinner party tonight. So welcome to Mission Log Live. I'm Norman Lau.
Hi, and I'm Charlene Schmidt. I'm your guest host for today. And Norm, I got that memo about the Hawaiian shirt, the more up-dressed thing for the show. But I don't know, it sounded a little sus. I wasn't buying it. And so instead I went the more casual route. And it's still relevant though, because what I'm wearing is Mission Log relevant. This is Mission Log merch.
Hey, look at that. And if you don't have that, you should have that, right?
You should have that. So buy that in the store.
So what's happening tonight, Char? As you can tell, people, so just want to let you know that Heather is not here tonight. She is off on her own mission and assignment. So we have Char coming in here at the behest of Command, Starfleet Command, or Mission Log Command. And she's our Cadet Square bingo for tonight. So if you have guest host on your bingo card, circle gets a square. You get, what do we have for her, Don? Well, we have the rest of the show notes. So, Char, what's happening and how can our listeners get in touch with us?
Well, the way that you can get in touch with us is to go on the Zoom link, give us a ring by using one tap from your smartphone, or you can call us 669-900-6833, enter the meeting code and the password that you see in the show notes, and you're in.
Alrighty. And speaking of people who are in, let's talk about the chat because the chat is going off. So at the pole position, we have Tracy Lee Coco. Hello, Tracy.
Lieutenant Jay
is in here. Mm-hmm.
Hello.
So
I love you.
Glad to have you here. John Arminio, Anne Marie. Nice to see you. We have
Anne
Matt.
Marie.
We have Chris. We have Spencer. We have one of the Pauls because
one Paul?
Paul 1 reporting for duty. There are 3, maybe 4 that usually show up. Whichever designation that they want, they're the Paul Borgs. You know, the Borgs of Paul.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they can fight that out. Alan, good to see you. Good to have you here. Cosmo, David,
Wow.
Hope you're doing well, my friend. Jama, because you spelled it out and I didn't read that far, even though it's only one line literally below your name. Jama, nice to have you here. Steve, Matthew, another Paul. I knew it.
Hey, there we go. Now we're cooking.
If anything, they're predictable. They're Paul-dictable, as they should say. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have a really packed show. We are here to talk about Strange New Worlds Episode 2, The Children of the Comet. But before we do that, though, there are a couple things that I think that all of you would like to know. We're going to go through some of the Mission Log housekeeping here, because this Thursday, May 19th, put this on your calendar, we have an exclusive interview with David C. Fine and Darren Doctorman, who shared with us, with John and me, a lot of behind the scenes and special stories and anecdotes regarding the 4K restoration of Star Trek, the motion picture. So you do not want to miss that. It's a fabulous interview. Darren and David were so amazing. They told us so many great things. And also, if you have not yet seen this, and I highly stress that you do, because I'm going to be there as well. Starting Sunday, May 22nd, and on Monday, May 23rd, and then Wednesday, May 25th, Fathom Events is going to be showing the big screen version of the 4K motion picture for Star Trek, this director's cut. So check your local listings, go to fathomevents.com and figure out when you're going to go see it, because you definitely want to see that. Here's a little spoiler from that interview. The film was restored with the whole premise in mind that it's supposed to be on the big screen. So whatever you saw on Paramount Plus was probably great. Whatever you're going to see on the big screen is going to be greater. So make sure you go see it. Yep. What else is coming up for us, Char?
Well, first off, thank you for that reminder, because I definitely want to go. I've got to see it on the big screen.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
But we've got a whole lot else going on with the Mission Log universe. We have Mission Log The Orville and Mission Log Prodigy available as podcasts and videos. You can go to podcast.roddenberry.com, click on the show of your choice, and there you can find the whole shebang. See what I did there?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Mission Log coverage of The Orville, New Horizons is going to be happening soon with Captain Mike Richards and Jessica Lynn Verdi. So make sure you subscribe if you're not already, and that way you get notified the moment that content hits. And also, you and John are doing Mission Log Engage, and that playlist is on YouTube for all the serious and difficult topics that you get questions about and that are sent in from the listeners. So make sure you're subscribed to Engage as well. That's really good stuff.
So, and you can find all of these shows at youtube.com/roddenberry/entertainment. And you can find all of the podcast versions of them at podcasts.roddenberry.com. So that's pretty much what's happening in the Mission Log universe. So make sure that you check us out. Make sure when you go to YouTube, make sure you like and share and subscribe, and make sure that you share it with all the people that haven't seen these new shows yet. This is exclusive content on YouTube for you. Thank you for watching and supporting us. So here we go. Let's get into the recap.
Ooh, let's do that.
Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 2, Children of the Comet. On her way to Captain Pike's dinner party and dressed to anxiety-bursting perfection, Cadet Uhura soon realizes she's been punked as part of Lieutenant Navia's hazing ritual. And judging by the captain's chuckle at Uhura's misfortune, Cadet Bingo is still alive and well in Starfleet. As dinner winds down, Pike and company learn a little bit more about Uhura than just her talent for languages, of which she actively speaks 37. She's unsure about her Starfleet path, a path that several thousands in her position would be willing to take. After the dinner party, Una remarks that when Pike asked Uhura about her future, there was unsettling tone about him. He admits that his future and the cadets he saved are foremost on his mind. Suddenly, Spock summons them both to the bridge. His computer simulation outlines that a comet he's tracking will strike Persephone 3 in 2 days unless they can change its path. With miniature ion engines powerful enough to do just that, 4 modified photon torpedoes are fired at the comet and then are surprisingly deflected by a force field. Well, time for plan B, as in beam down to the comet to figure out what happened. Spock-La-On xenobiology specialist Sam Kirk and Uhura are beamed down to the comet to see what can be done about its shields. On the surface, they discover a giant egg-like shape in the center of the landing area. It's covered with a series of glyphs, and upon approaching it, the egg illuminates and explodes with energy, throwing Kirk across the room and into cardiac arrest. Spock stabilizes him, but Kirk needs an immediate beam out. However, the comet's shields are preventing just that, and it's up to Uhura to break the language barrier and figure out how to lower the force field so they can escape. No pressure. Back on Enterprise, Ortegas believes that adjusting phaser harmonics could shatter the comet's shields. Pike agrees and has Ortegas bring the ship around to line up the shot. Suddenly, Enterprise is rocked by unknown enemy fire. Hailing frequencies open, the attackers have identified themselves as the Shepherds and the sworn guardians of Mahonet, who they tell Pike is not a comet. They demand Enterprise to withdraw or be destroyed, and after a quick tactical scan, Una says that the Shepherds have the firepower. They inform Pike that they protect Mahonet and others like it, protecting their destinies that have already been preordained. However, Pike disagrees that any future, including the destruction of a planet and the deaths of billions, is predestination. Back on the comet and pushing through layers of self-doubt, Cadet Uhura makes a significant breakthrough. While humming music to herself, she realizes she's communicating to the comet through music, more specifically, its mathematical pattern of repetition in sound. Through this connection, Uhura asks the comet to lower the force field, and the away team is safely beamed to Enterprise. However, the Shepherds believe that the away team desecrated their sacred temple on Mahonet and consider that an act of war. While Ortegas executes her very own evasive pattern to avoid the Shepherds' pursuit, Pike unveils his plan. He orders Enterprise to power down and play dead, then pleads with the Shepherds for assistance in case Enterprise's warp core explodes, which would destroy Mahonet as well. This diversion allows Spock, who is in shuttlecraft Galileo and attached to a tail fragment surface, to fly back into Mahonet's path. Using heat shields to break apart Mahonet and change its trajectory, a large chunk of it breaks free and falls into the atmosphere of Persephone 3. The shift in Mahonet's mass changes its orbital approach just enough for it to pass by the planet safely. The crisis is over and the planet is saved. However, the Shepherds point out something that both Spock and Una confirm. The ice chunk that fell from Mahonet changed the atmosphere, causing rain to fall on this once desert planet. Was Spock's flight preordained all this time to assist Mahonet in bringing water to the children of this planet? After being debriefed and with questions of predestination creating more questions than answers, Cadet Uhura and Spock share a very special moment where he reminds her that Starfleet would indeed be fortunate to have her. In the privacy of his quarters, Captain Pike, ruminating on the recent events with Mahonet and predestination, asks the computer to open files on very specific names of specific children who in the future will be specific Starfleet cadets. The end.
Very nice, sir.
How was that? Was that specific enough for you?
Very specific.
All right, Shar. So, Shar, you haven't been on for a while, but you watch all the time, and you know that after we do the recap, we get into a couple of notes that, especially about the episode, notes that are meaningful to us. Looking at what we usually do on Mission Log, and we looking at the morals, meanings, and messages, of the episode. But let's kind of like start off with first impressions. How did this episode speak to you? What did you gain out of it? What were some of the lasting impressions that you got?
I think I have to go with my gut here and just gush about Uhura for a moment because she is the centerpiece of this show. But I love everything that this episode did with her and for her and this character, generally speaking. This might be an exaggeration, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think we got more Uhura backstory in this hour than we did in the last 55 plus years of the franchise. Like, we got such good, rich stuff here. And it's melding what we do know with the singing, made it central to the story, which I appreciated, but then adds all this other stuff. And regarding Uhura specifically, she is young. She has a little bit of imposter syndrome. She's exceptionally gifted, but doesn't really know her place in the world. I think it's very important to be portraying that no matter who you are, no matter how exceptionally talented you are, or what your talents are, generally speaking, you're not necessarily going to have it all together. And this is in great contrast to Pike later on, right? Where he feels his world is closing in on him. She's got the whole world wide open, too many options, maybe. So Starfleet is just one of them for her. And so I feel like this story does a great job of giving her a little bit of that journey, solidifying what we already know, that she will have a career in Starfleet.
I mean, Celia Rose Gooding, she really just kind of comes into her own. The way that, say, Christina Chong did with La'an, Noonien Singh in the pilot episode. Celia really kind of owned Uhura's space. And, with all great respect, obviously, to Nichelle Nichols as Uhura, Celia's making this role her own. And she's giving us, and the writers, everyone who's involved with crafting this character, a new backstory and putting those qualities of Uhura in context that make us understand Uhura obviously a little bit more, especially with the music and the humming, and obviously knowing that the Uhura that we know from the original series and Nichelle, very musically based character. We know that from all of the past 56 years of that character being on screen. One of the things that I know, this is really, really, really weird. It literally is like my favorite scene in the episode, and it lasts for all of maybe half a second. It's when Pike sees Uhura in her dress uniform, and he has that chuckle. Anson as Pike, and Pike conveying that, speaks volumes in literally nanoseconds, because he knows that at one point in time that was him.
Absolutely.
And now
they've all been there, right?
Right. Everything's coming back around. And it's nice to kind of see almost kind of like this full circle of where Pike started as a cadet, where he is now, and where Uhura is starting, and seeing her kind of start to forge her own path. I thought that was just absolutely brilliant and a great just character moment for Pike. Looking at morals and meanings and messages, before we jump into our callers, I think it's safe to say that the episode focuses fairly clearly on the future is what you make of it. But at the same time, though, there is kind of like this other message that's tempering that message. And you have to think about this whole aspect of predestination. If there is such a thing as predestination, then how do we believe, or how do we go forward with the aspect of the course of action that we're taking now is in any way contrary to the actions that we were planning to take because they've already been predetermined? This gets into a lot of kind of like Doctor Who timey-wimey, temporal paradox
yes
situations, right? But
this is all what is swimming through Pike's head right now, is this contemplation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that would drive me mad.
I think that's something that we're seeing like a lot of in Pike per episode. I think that there's this really interesting relationship with the moral of the story that we see is almost the moral journey or the introspective journey that he's taking at the same time. And they almost parallel each other in terms of pacing. And then obviously in the general understanding resolution of the episode. But hey, don't take my word for it. Don't take Char's word for it. We have a lot of callers lined up. Let's see what the callers have to say about it. So up first here, we have Cosmo. And looking like you're in this wonderful, mountainous, arid, delicious region of Earth. I hope you're on Earth.
Sierra Nevadas.
All right.
Up at a little glamp ground last weekend. It's a cool little thing they built into the mountains with a 14-inch telescope, and you get some dark skies up outside of Bishop, California. And being from LA, we don't really get dark skies ever. So it was a nice little 4-hour drive, and getting to overlook those mountains was really nice.
Hey, did you say glamping? Is that's camping, but with posh? Right?
Yeah, he has a hot tub. He has these little tents that look like they're from Mars that are super comfy. And so, yeah, it's glamorous camping.
Wow, right. I could do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to convince John to have Roddenberry sponsor a little team building thing up there. That'd be a fun excursion.
I love all of that idea. I love it all. So when you were glamping, did you have a chance to watch this episode before or after you came back?
I am so into it that I'm watching it when it drops at midnight on Wednesday/Thursday. So
super fan.
Nice.
Even for Picard, which I didn't, I was at least interested and engaged enough that I was doing that for Picard also. Anson Mount as Pike is so darn charming and handsome. I haven't had a man crush like this since probably Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I feel that.
It's insane. I want to be on his crew.
It's all that, baby. The silver pompadour. He is the king of that. I hope that hairstyle makes a huge comeback, and it's all because of him.
Yeah, but to Cosmo's defense, James Marsters as Spike on Buffy had an amazing pompadour blonde lock. So I'm just saying, right?
There's a theme.
That's distinguished.
I like the casual dinner scene. I mean, we've never really gotten that relationship with a Trek captain and his crew before. Jean-Luc was very formal. Janeway had to keep that barrier because she was off in the Delta Quadrant. We got that a little bit with Sisko and his senior staff, but we've never seen this kind of casual hanging out, and I really like the vibe on the ship.
Yeah, I like that. And I also liked a lot of the memes that are going around about how Strange New Worlds is finally nailing casual attire on Enterprise this time around, as opposed to, Wesley or Jake or anyone that was wearing, the 1990s, run-of-the-mill textile, like vomit explosion patterns that were, prevalent across Star Trek. Exactly. Finding those textile fabric suppliers in LA that were getting you like pennies on the acre of fabric, right? Those kinds. But yeah, no, I like just the casual atmosphere. Yeah. Now there have been interesting comments like saying that, wow, the captain, it's good to be the captain, because you obviously have quarters that dwarf pretty much anyone else's quarters on the ship. We all know that this comes from a storytelling perspective where he can bring in the crew as family, of which they are to him, so that he needs that kind of, he needs that space to throw his gatherings so that people can congregate and commune and break bread and, not feel like they're just on duty the entire time and, be part of a community, which probably in the cold vastness of space breaks up that tedium, but it is pretty large quarters. I'm just
and how cozy and welcoming does that thing feel? Like I want an invite to go to the party. That this looks like a really good time.
Oh yeah.
I do have one question though. Does Captain Pike hand wash his dishes all the time, or is this just the special china?
Because what do you think, Cosmo?
There's got to be some kind of future thing for it. Just drop it and it gets all the food particles off and reclaims them into other matter.
For his sake, I hope so.
Now, there was speculation. Were those ribs that he was making, was that replicated or was that already cooked? I mean, he was basting them, I think.
The interesting thing is there was a lot of chatter on social media about, being in the time before replicators were really fully being utilized, by Starfleet. So I'm thinking that, with Captain's prerogative and of course, being invited to the captain's table, you're probably going to get some pretty good food. When you're being served at during those parties. But I think with the whole dishwashing thing, I think it all just goes down to the captain, I think, really likes to keep his hands on the oars. Like
Yes.
like being like riding a horse. I mean, his horse has to get bridled, has to get, cleaned, has to get put away, not covered with snow or damp. He looks like he's just a very hands approach kind of guy, so
yeah. I agree. I'm not pointing out the hand dishwashing as like a criticism or anything like that, because it very much is in line with his classic style.
Oh no, far from it. I think it's just the opposite. I think it totally goes to like complimenting his personality as a man who just likes doing the basic things. It means a lot to him. That's part of his character building, I think.
It says a lot about that. Yeah.
Yep.
I really appreciate the sound design so far in the series. It made my inner nerd happy when I heard the phaser noise, when they shot the phaser, and the torpedo noise. Very classic. And the visual aesthetics too. I love the way the bridge looks. They did a great modern update of it, while still remaining true. And I couldn't be more pleased with all the visual and sound design so far.
I mean, I'm still like in awe of having like spindly legged chairs like they did in the 1960s. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but those are the small things that, that stand out to me. Now, I have to be fair, and I have to, be 100%, transparent with some of the conversations that I've had about some of the things that I have not liked about the series. And one of the things, in me for particular, I was telling Char this earlier offline, I really didn't care for the design of the formal uniform. It just aesthetically just did not work for me. I like, Starfleet usually doesn't have juxtaposing dynamics and designs within their very clean lines of their uniforms, and the way that kind of like the jagged peaks with the gold piping on Uhura's uniform just didn't work for me. Conversely, though, Spock's defibrillator, that's right, you heard it, I said it, his defibrillator function totally worked for me. I thought that thing was cool, except for that misspelling, but hey, you know what, whatever.
It was cool.
It was cool. Bottom line, it was cool. One last thing, Cosmo, before we have to let you go and get on to our next caller.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. Just a real strong start. You think back in the history of Trek and how it takes time for actors and the writers to find the groove. You think back to Dr. Bashir or the Doctor from Voyager or Deanna Troi, and how you watch them season one, it's rough getting going. It takes them a while. And I just feel like everybody's really hit the ground running, writers, actors, and it just feels really natural. And Ortega's was my only question mark. In the first episode, her main characteristic just seemed to be smirking all the time, but she's growing on me. That was a strong second episode from her, and I liked her flying. That was an impressive scene. And so I think it's just a really strong start, and I'm loving it so far.
Yeah, I think that's nice. And hopefully they're carrying on this tradition of Pike's story, obviously being kind of like the consistent through line, but you're going to get these episodes that are focusing on very specific characters and the crew, because that's something that I think a lot of fans have been asking for, throughout the course of the very beginning of Discovery to now. It's like, we want to know our crew because this is our found family. Very much like they did on Prodigy, which is to much of Prodigy's credit and success, is that once we become emotionally connected to the crew, we become emotionally connected to the series. And when you have that kind of loyalty and that kind of that tie and buy-in, to what you're watching, it becomes a far greater experience than just watching it for the sake of, I'm a fan of, enter fandom name here. You want to be invested, and you want to be able to feel that demanding your attention and making you return week after week, because that's what falling in love with the television series is all about, don't you think?
Well said, sir.
Thanks. Must be the Kahlua.
Thanks a bunch, guys. We'll see you next week.
All right, Cosmo. Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
All right. So next up, we have the king of memes. I'm talking about Alan. What's happening, Alan?
Hello, Alan.
Hi, Norm. Hi, Shar. Nice to see you both here tonight. Heather, hope everything's going well for you. But yeah, this was good fun episode. Just to piggyback off the last conversation, there is a high-tech device that can clean dishes for you. It's called a dishwasher. I have one. It's great.
Yes, I highly agree with this comment. I could not live without it.
When they work, they're great, and when they go south, they go south badly. Right?
Yeah.
Need those
Fingers-
replaced now.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Check your hoses. Yeah, make sure everything's working right on your dishwasher. But yeah, I was thoroughly pleased with this episode of Star Trek. Yeah, just good stuff all around. Let's see. I was going to talk specifically. I liked, you guys have talked a little bit about Uhura already, but I assume that there was a significance to specifically making the character who is the cadet, who is unsure of her place in Star Trek or in Starfleet, and making that Uhura, given what we know about Nichelle and her journey with the franchise. I mean, that's one of the hallmark stories is that she didn't know if she wanted to stay, and it took a very good pep talk to keep her on board the show. So it's interesting and nice to see that mirrored here with the character. I thought that was a lovely little, what I assume is an intentional tribute.
I did not make that parallel. Norm, did you make that parallel?
Actually, no. This is why Alan, this is why he gets the big bucks. That's why he's dressed to the nines. Did you wear that jacket specifically
Huzzah!
for this episode?
This is my dress casual look.
There you go.
Okay, I dig that.
Yeah, very good point. I really like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and the great thing is that when you have the respect that the people that are crafting these shows have for the legacy and the lineage of the fandom, you're going to get these hallmark moments because contrary to what many critiques have levied against either the writers, the producers, or people that are producing new Star Trek, these people actually do care. You may not think it. You may not agree with what they're doing. You may not agree with the way that they're approaching Star Trek, but they do care that you don't walk into a situation where you know that you're going to put your work out in the public space and say, I just don't care. I'm just going to do it anyway. No one does that, right? So, people can agree to disagree, but at the same time, though, I do think that, they're going to pick up on a lot of these touch points and respect the franchise. Did we lose Alan, Earl? Is Alan still there?
There he is.
I am back. I apologize. I don't know if it's weather related or if my internet provider really does suck that bad. But
hey, join the club, pal. So and I have to host this thing. So yeah, Zoom has been a little crazy in the last couple of days. It's, you know what? I think that we live in this day and age where you have sunspots or you have asteroids taking out, your antenna array, you have bad subspace, radiation signaling. I'm just glad you're here and we can get at least one or two cohesive words out of you.
No. I'm happy that it locked back in as quickly as it did. But yeah. We were talking about Uhura and the fact that I totally agree with you guys about the fact that, these are writers who care. These are writers who understand and love Star Trek as much as we do, and do we always agree with them? No, but that doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it bad writing if something doesn't quite match up with what we assume Star Trek is or has come before.
Here's a fun fact. Here's a fun fact for everyone out there. We didn't agree with them all the way back then, let alone we're going to agree with them with everything that they right now. It's having free will. It's having the ability to be able to look at something and articulate and intelligently critique a piece of public work that turns into art, that turns into something that the rest of the public community that are fans of that artwork can ruminate upon, right? Because that's the point of art, right? To be able to express an idea and then for the public to be able to interpret said idea and come together through, wait for it, communication, through conversation, right? Hey, how about that?
Yeah. So, conversation, whether it's, us here talking, whether it's, singing to a space building on a space egg on a comet, it's all good.
Hey, Alan, stay with us for a second, because we're just going to do a little bit of something about Discord here, and I'd like to get and pick your brain about it and see if you can give us a nice plug, since you're on our Discord and Patreon all the time. So I just want to let everyone know that if you haven't subscribed yet, we do a little something for Mission Log called Patreon. And through the subscription service, for as little as $1 a month, you can access what we have there, created specially and exclusively for our Patreon subscribers, which is our Discord. And our Discord has so many different channels, so many different topics. Shar, you've been on Discord with us for a little bit now.
Yep, a while, yeah.
Where do you go? Like, what drives your attention? And do you stay just for the Epicurean photos for the food?
It's certainly become a large part of my reason for going on Discord a lot more than I used to. And I've found myself, as the months have gone by, just being more and more a part of the community, because it's got good people. We have good conversations. We have fun. So I'm just drawn in to have that experience more than just random people arguing on Twitter. That's not as much fun as it used to be. So the Mission Log Discord has become a big part of my Trek community. And I want to thank all of you who are on there for making it that way. You're all a lot of fun. I love doing our Mission Log After Dark. And Norm, you and John, of course, are wonderful. And I love hanging with you. So it's all good.
Well, one of the things that John and I felt was very important, to our community, the Mission Log listeners and the Mission Log subscribers for Patreon, is to create this space where, our fans could come in and talk about a variety of different topics. Alan, again, you're on there all the time. What do you enjoy most? What do you enjoy most about being on Discord and being a Patreon subscriber?
Well, I agree wholeheartedly about the Epicureanism photos. My goodness. I post the stuff that I throw together in my own kitchen, and I hope that it works for some people, but man, the stuff that other people post is amazing. Just the being able to connect with people in sort of hopefully a meaningful way is just a good thing. I agree with this as a platform for discussion, especially amongst the people who choose to gather there, compared to, say, Twitter. I'm on Twitter almost because you kind of have to be at a certain point, but it's not necessarily fun all the time, and it's not necessarily and there's a lot of just sort of like competing voices, like, hey, let's talk over here, no, let's talk on my stream. With the Discord, it's all in one place. There's no competing for attention. There's no, we're all paying to be there. It's not like, we're trying to drum up business for ourselves. It's just, it is what it is. It's lovely.
And something that we're going to be doing new, and every Wednesday night. Now, this is the Wednesday before the new episode of Strange New World comes out, or the new episode of the new series du jour. We are going to have on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to have live chats about the new episode. So this Wednesday, it will be May 18th. We'll be having a live chat, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time, about and continuing the topic of talking about Children of the Comet. So if you want to join us, Please join us at patreon.com/missionlog. All it takes is $1 a month for a subscription, or more if you want to get to some of the tier perks. And yep, that's pretty much it. So on to the rest of the show. So we have a couple more callers lined up. Alan, just want to say, have any last things to say about this episode? And hopefully you'll see you on Wednesday night.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, if everything goes well, I'll be throwing a campsite full of onkegs against my D&D group on Wednesday. But, nice. More power to you guys.
All right. Well, may your dice ever roll in your favor.
Exactly.
Or their favor.
But yeah, Just have fun on Wednesday. Enjoy the conversation. Hope everything keeps rolling, the way that it's supposed to. And hopefully we'll be back here next Monday for another fun discussion of another great episode of Strange New Worlds. Fingers crossed.
All right. Perfect, man. Thanks, Alan. Thanks for being here. Appreciate the call.
Have a good one.
All right, man. You too. All right. So next up, we have John Arminio. Hello, John. Always good to have you here on the show. Welcome back.
Hello, John.
Hello. Great to meet you. I don't think we've chatted before.
No, I do not believe we have met. Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
I sort of have a weird, big meta question. One of the big drawbacks of telling any prequel story is that you know how it's going to end. Like, you know where the plot is moving. So I'm wondering if Pike seeing his own destiny, and especially with the plot of this episode, is this the writer's attempt to say, even if we know where the story ends up, like, our story as characters, as human beings, as a TV show is still worth telling and experiencing. And so let's tackle that disadvantage head on. Or am I just reading too much into this?
What do you think,
Maybe
Char?
not. No, I don't think you might be reading into that too much. I think that might very well be a big part of what they're trying to do. Because like you said, it is dangerous that we do know the ending, but there's so much more story you can tell in how he gets there. Also, we do not know the full circumstances of what goes down that leads to him making that decision entirely. So we may, in that moment, when we do get to that moment, I'm assuming we will someday, when we see it happen, it's all going to click. If they have a plan, and I hope they do, they're going to have a genius way of making it all come full circle. And then in that moment, when it hits, we will all just be like, wow, okay, look at what they did there. That was cool. And it's still like a big moment. That takes incredible writing to do, but I want to have faith that this crew will do that.
I think, one of the things that I'm sure that any writer, when they pitch a story like this, especially a prequel story, that's so close to the original source, I'm talking about the original series, they have to have a plan in place so that they know that they're not going to get caught behind the eight ball when it comes to very articulate, very, detail-oriented viewers like yourself, John, asking this very same question. So knowing that they have Pike's destiny well laid out, and we know what happened to Pike through the cage and through the menagerie. We know the ultimate destiny for Pike is to go back to Talos 4 so that the Talosians can heal him in that way that they do. This is why we have General Order 4. But seeing his journey from now to then, or maybe say from Bahamut to then, or to whenever that accident happens, all of the touch points of the characters that he's going to influence along the way, I think is just as important as his own destiny and seeing his story unfold. Him having that conversation with La'an at the end of Strange New Worlds was important to her. That's going to change the course of her destiny. Someone believing in her who has never believed in her in that way before. It's almost as if that they're looking at it from the reverse of It's a Wonderful Life. Remove Pike from history, and how many lives will it affect? So he has to go through the course of history, and we have to watch whose destiny that he's going to change. He's obviously going to change the destiny of those, or are they 5 or 6 cadets that he saves? But what about Uhura? What about Spock? You remember some of the things that are being said on social media. Spock has such a loyalty to Pike that he risks court-martial and ruining his career, all for the sake of doing the one thing for his friend that his friend didn't even ask him to do. Where does that loyalty come from? Where does that discipline, that fortitude, and even for a Vulcan, the passion to have that kind of a friendship, how is that forged and why? Hopefully we'll get to that part of the story. Hopefully we'll get to see that, because in my opinion, we didn't see that kind of a relationship with him and Kirk. We saw a great relationship, but never once did we ever see Spock risk his commission and his career for Kirk. We saw Kirk do it for Spock, and we saw Kirk do it for Spock again in a mock time. He saved myself a dozen times over. Isn't that worth a career? But now we get to see why Spock does it for Pike. and the events that lead up to that. I think that's the story worth telling, not necessarily knowing that he's going to end in some way, but seeing what Pike is going to do in the meantime, and how many lives he's going to be able to affect or save. I mean, he saved all of those people on Persephone 3, or did he? Right. And this goes into this whole aspect of predestination. What if Pike is basically saying it doesn't matter what I do, because everything I do is going to end up to that final destination for me anyway. So am I doing it because I have a choice, or am I doing it because the choices, a la Muhammad, has been chosen for me? So that's a really interesting dichotomy in terms of the philosophy of what's being said here. Is Pike on rails, or is he going to make the choice? What say you out there in chat?
And I think the show has so far done a really good job of characterizing him, even small details like he is somebody who washes dishes, like he's somebody who cherishes the details and the process and the tactile experiences of life. Like, yes, the dishes are going to get done. It's the 23rd century, but he wants to be the one to literally and metaphorically get his hands dirty. And I think that's really interesting and believable. And I really liked what you said about us seeing why Spock is specifically so fiercely loyal to Pike. And I do want to see that. But I'm also a little wary of the over Easter eggization of the show. Like, I don't need another Khan. I don't need another Sung or Sing. Like, I love these characters, and I think they're all great, and they've been well drawn and well acted and well written so far. But like, I don't like it. Giving them a Sing last name isn't gonna magically make me more interested in their story.
And I agree with you 100%. And if it weren't for how well acted and well written La'an's character was in the Strange New Worlds from the get-go, I probably would have been, or probably would still watch her character with a lot of anticipation and maybe just kind of like dismissiveness, because like, oh, Noonien Singh, we're just waiting for her character to act a certain way or be written a certain way. But that's what I love about so far in this series, that there's a lot of subversion of expectation, where you're looking at a character and in this development, but it changes and it shifts for a very specific purpose. And I really do love in the end of this episode where Uhura said, all of the stuff that happened on the comet, I was told about before it happened, or I read about it on the egg before it happened. So everything that you did, the shepherds were right. It was predetermined to happen. So how does that affect decision-making processes of what Spock did in hindsight? Because I'm sure that probably throws his logic, into a tizzy. And then Pike's like, anything that I do isn't going to make any difference because it's already been planned out for me. So it'll be interesting to see how they suss that out, and as with as much interest that the audience has in terms of, does this make sense, or are we sniffing out, some type of like subterfuge that the writer's thinking about being too clever, right? So we'll see what happens, I guess, there.
Yeah.
Could we talk a little moment about the ending, just how everything resolves? Because it seems to me that it's a very miraculous, everybody gets what they want type of story. It's what Michael Scott from The Office would call win-win-win, where everybody goes away happy, feeling like they did the right thing. It went their way and it's all good. I mean, with the shepherds, they feel like they protected Mahanit, and the belief that their actions are preordained. It does seem to have some truth to it, given what Uhura found after the fact. And the crew of the Enterprise, though, successfully executed a solution that followed the constraints of the situation. And speaking of which, okay, side note, I feel like this whole strategy of this mission was like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching the comet. You know how kids do that to each other just to annoy each other? That's what it felt like. Anyway, but then also the civilization on the desert planet, they received the gift of water from Mahanit. So they went to, Mahanit gets to go off on its business and do whatever it does. Good.
Right.
Too happy?
Yeah, the shepherds seemed really dead set on, like, leave our comet alone. And for them to so quickly turn around and be like, see, it's all great.
Right.
Yeah, it was a real quick turnaround and seemed not to correlate with their characterization like 5 minutes earlier. And it seemed like they'd be extra sensitive to any sort of interfering with their comet, even if you weren't literally touching it. Especially in the future with spaceships, we know you don't need to touch an object to affect its trajectory.
Right.
I mean, they're definitely playing fast and loose with kind of like the strict interpretation of Pike being a reasonable man. For me, what kind of didn't ring or sit well with me about Pike's character at the very beginning was his dismissiveness of their belief system. They're like,
because he has that moment of, oh my God, are you kidding?
Oh my God, zealots. Like it's a, like he throws kind of like that pejorative at him and just like, okay,
but he
now
walks
you just
it back.
He does.
He walks that back and he embraces diplomacy. So even despite whatever he may personally believe, he's reaching out, trying to find common ground and make this work. Whereas Ortegas, on the other hand, faces the other side of the shepherds, where she's just, I cannot believe these space monks believe this stuff.
But what if Pike had the different attitude at the beginning? Would have Ortegas have been as trigger happy, to use the euphemism? Because Pike sets the tone, right?
Yeah.
He sets the tone. And he's like, new civilization, new species. Remember that speech that I gave you guys last episode? That's this. That's happening like right now. Zealots. Oh yeah, let's pew pew them. I mean, come on. You have to set the tone. You're the captain. Anything that you say starts a chain reaction. So there's where I thought maybe he was a little bit too dismissive. I'm glad he got there in the end. But at the same time, though, it was interesting to see how the rest of his crew reacted to his initial impression of the shepherd saying that, hey, we're space monks and we have this thing that we know that does this thing. And this is what we believe.
Yeah, it is an interesting contrast with like a captain like Janeway, who, if you're just following the most recent mission log episodes, how she's really gone out of her way to reach out to people who might want to blow her up.
Even the Kazon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even them.
Again.
Yes. So
because my time wasn't enough.
Maybe it just out of desperate. Janeway is in a position of desperation, and Pike is sort of feeling his oats as the captain of the Enterprise at this point, that thinks he has the ability to call them a zealot to their face. But yeah, it seemed like a not very diplomatic moment or diplomatic tone to set when you're trying to save a civilization from extinction.
Yeah, maybe one thing we need to remember is that this is the 23rd century, not the 24th century. We don't have the Captain Picards in the Federation yet. They're still maybe a little rough and tumble trying to figure these things out.
He seemed fairly polished at the end of S&W. So I'm just saying. Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm also just trying to say.
Yeah, I get
it. And it has been a while since I've seen the episodes Pike was on Discovery, but he also seemed to have a very nuanced view of religion, especially compared to the other other characters, or at least faith in general. So it seemed like if any character on the ship would be able to approach the shepherds with nuance, it seemed like it should have been him.
Yeah, see,
that's a very good point.
The Enterprise being one last thing, John, because I'm going to get to Paul Harbour before we close out the show. So remember that line? It's probably my favorite line, and one of my favorite lines so far in all of Star Trek. When elephants fight, the grass suffers. Mm-hmm. The Enterprise was an elephant. The shepherds were an elephant. The planet was the grass. So I wanted Pike to be able to look at it from that perspective. Like, look, you got that. Your stick is big, dude. Shepherd's stick is bigger. So you guys are going to fight it out. What's going to happen to the planet?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I wanted to get. I'm glad that Pike got there, but it really did remind me of something that he brought to, the aliens, the Kylie, in last episode, that when superpowers fight, man, everyone else suffers but them. Yeah. And I'm glad they kind of got back to that at the end. John, thanks so much for calling, man. I appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure. Thanks for talking. I appreciate it.
Good talking.
Of course. Anytime.
Take care.
All righty. So we have Paul Harvith. What's up, man?
Hello.
Coming in at the end of the show.
Oh man. Shar, it's great to see you. We see you on Thursday nights, and Patreon is like the best. Oh man, it's just the best.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
It's so much fun. I can't. The current state of the world, I can't get too much happy. I needed a happy one. I liked the way this ended. I liked the way the whole thing went. So man, just needed the happy, and not too much. I could use some more happy.
That's fair.
As far as John's point about the shepherds coming in bang bang, coming in hot, and then moving to a different position. Let's understand the subtlety with which the captain put himself between the Comet, right? Now in the old days, it would have been a big deal. It's like, oh, let's do this special, pike maneuver to get associated with where they are. He let the pilot do what she does to get him there. And it was not the plot. In like the 60s, that would have been the plot, right? This was just one of many little tiny plots. I think the shepherds figured out that, well, if this guy's this smart, or this crew is this smart, it wasn't just one person, maybe we better be careful what we're doing here. So, it's a great point that he had. And I think they subtly, these episodes are the kind of things you want to watch a couple times to get all the nuances, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Nurse Chapel is just tearing it up for us. She's just, amazing. The quote unquote flirting with Spock. If that was flirting, well, it was funny to just watch that whole thing take place because you aren't expecting it from Spock, right? Or the laugh was pretty interesting.
That was, yeah.
So I'm really digging this captain's ability to be in command, make the final decisions, but not be stressed about it. Things just seem to, it's all under there, but he's letting all the opinions out. He's getting it done. Man, what a talented leader. And we need these kind of role models in society today, as far as I'm concerned.
We need our leaders to be like this.
Well, it's, this is not the rough and tumble days. This is a person who, is leveraging all his resources and letting his people do what they do best and letting them learn what they do best. Oh man, what a godsend. I think it's fantastic, but
I mean, there is anyone who is in a management position or believes that their managers aren't the capable leaders that they should be, or that serve the best interest of either the company or the employees or the staff. What's great about watching really good leadership written is that somewhere along the line, the writers or somebody that has that perspective, and you can see that from 10,000 feet, understand the dynamics of strong leadership, where leadership is there to guide, but leadership isn't there to demand certain things of certain people. You have to be able to trust the skill sets and the qualities and the passion of the people that you hopefully have had a small part in training or crafting in their career. And that's where I think, again, was talking to John about, it's not the destination that Pike is going to eventually reach. It's all the people that he's going to influence along the way that's going to make these people better leaders for the future, better leaders for Starfleet. And in turn, they're going to be the root cause of the people that are under their command or under their training. It all pays forward. It all starts with him. So yes, we know that he's going to eventually suffer, a fate worse than death in the chair, but all the people that he's going to influence, they're going to influence other people. And Starfleet and the future of humanity is going to be able to grow and prosper because of the actions of this one man. Right. And I think that that's the beauty of telling a Star Trek story, like as intimate as this, is that you can trace the lineage of where Starfleet greatness comes from in this particular point in the story. Some people believe it's Kirk, some people believe it's Spock. It's always at the center of the story, which is the captain. So it's nice to be able to find a very clean and very linear pathway of where the story starts and where the story stops and who's going to be affected in between. And I think that that's something that's very refreshing about this particular way of telling the story. It's very classic. It's very uncomplicated, but at the same time, though, it doesn't lose any of the nuance of modern storytelling. So I think that's a really good way of looking at it, Paul, from the point of leadership.
Yeah, I was impressed. Shar, do you have anything in there?
Only that Ortegas was Tom Paris before we had a Tom Paris, because she is the best darn pilot you could ever have. I'll just throw that in here.
Well, you have the disco pilot too. She's pretty good.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not trying
Detmer's
to
pretty
come down
awesome.
on. She is. She does donuts in space. So
Yeah, I
let's
wanna
not
see
forget
the-
about that.
I want to both see them do the Kessel run, see how long it takes them.
Hey.
So changing just a little bit, the ship itself, so as a person who makes like model spaceships, right? They've taken the Aztecing now to a new level. I mean, this thing, to try and replicate this is virtually insane. You need like to, make all the little squares or whatever they are, four-sided tetrahedron things on, because they're circular and whatever shapes they are. And then you need to have like the changing color paint because they're constantly changing color, right? It's so stunning. But when they took the ship through that comet tail, didn't that feel like a video game? I mean, it was amazing. I'm just like watching this. We're both watching it going, this is unbelievable. And particularly if you have 4K and you're watching it, I don't know if it's broadcast in 4K, but it sure didn't look like it. It's like, wow, it's just so stunning. And what we're used to now, the standards, the bar is so high for all of these current Star Trek, programs. It's just amazing. I'm just glad to be alive to watch it. It's just amazing. So I'm not going to paint one of those soon, though. It's going to be a challenge.
I don't even know how modelers are going to get to that. Maybe it has to be like a decal sheet or something like that gets applied. I don't know. But, I think this is the one thing. I'm glad you touched on that, Paul, because watching the opening credits with, Jeff Russo's theme, the interpretation, of the original score, from the 60s, it's just, and watching the ship in the credits, it's almost, it's breaking a very, or at least riding a very, very serious line between almost being two in the uncanny valley. Like, that it's not real. That it doesn't exist, but it does, like in every possible way. And it's like, sometimes you watch it, especially I think there's like a 3/4 profile view of it getting lit before it goes into the asteroid field that's like far off in the distance. You're like, that can't be, that's not possible, right? Yeah. It's too gorgeous. It's like staring at the sun. It reminds me a lot of when Voyager goes through kind of like that upshot of the ice flow.
Yep.
It was
only
like,
better.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
In today's rendering skill sets. So I got one last point, and then a shout out to a fellow redhead friend of ours. We'll do that first. What a joy it is to see Dr. Erin McDonald's name as the technical consultant.
Yes.
She was at Starfest this past weekend in Denver, and she showed her name in the various fonts. And just a shout out to Erin and what she's done for herself. She's just an amazing human being and an amazing educator. So if you ever get a chance to see Erin live anywhere at a con, go support her. She's fabulous.
Oh, I think I have an open invitation for dinner and drinks, or dinner and conversation about Threshold. Like, I want her undivided attention on my thesis.
Oh, she'll be
Can
there.
I be there just in the distance, a fly on the wall? I don't care. I want to hear this.
If you're there and I'm there and she's there, you're with. That's a promise.
Okay, cool.
For sure. Yeah.
So the one last part of the episode is, why did Uhura have like a subordinate doing the communicating? It's obviously shifting, right? You have different not interns, cadets doing the communication with the Shepherds, but she was there as somebody else was actually doing the talking. Is she her subordinate, or are they parallel? I'm trying to figure that out.
See, I think the rotation, right? So like Uhura said at the very beginning of the episode that she was putting together rotation logs on the Comet's data. And then, she was on rotation for the away team mission. She wasn't picked specifically for the away team mission. It's just that she was on rotation. And then Captain Pike said, you want to talk to aliens, go to where the aliens are, right? So I think that another person that was, correct me if I'm wrong, Char, but I think, and I didn't see her rank, but I think it's just Uhura like does her cadet credit. And when she's away from that station, an actual officer is in place, I think.
It seemed like maybe Uhura was shadowing her a little bit.
Maybe.
Or something, or just happened to be on the bridge at that time, but she is not the officer on duty necessarily.
Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, she was like on the orbital. She was like, she was graveyard shift communications.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
All right, I'll let you two wrap it up. Always great to see Mission Log live. And
Thanks, Paul.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
All
That's
righty.
right. Right.
Wednesday, if you want, remember, don't forget, Wednesday is the live conversation on Discord for this episode.
That's right. Yeah. If you can't get enough of this, come back for more.
Yes, sir.
What time is that on Wednesday?
It'll be 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern.
10. Oh, it's a late one. Okay.
Yep.
10
Party
Eastern.
time.
I'll do my best. Thank
All
you
righty.
much.
All right.
Best to Michelle. Bye. Bye. It's amazing, Shar. Sometimes I look at the notes and at the very beginning of the show, I'm like, how are we going to get to the end of the show? And now we're at the end of the show. It's timey-wimey, crazy.
It happened
right?
so fast.
Yeah.
We didn't get to all the things we wanted to talk about.
If there was one thing that you really wanted to bring up, the one thing that you wanted to talk about, to leave the listeners with, let them kind of ruminate and chew on, what would it be for this episode?
I would say that I'm very impressed with the way Strange New Worlds, even though it does have an introduction in Disco, has this group of, it seems like, very well-formed and developed characters just going at full speed, telling some good stories. I am appreciating the format where it is the more episodic. We have a beginning, middle, end, and we can be satisfied with one little bit. But these characters are going to grow. They're not static. So I'm enjoying that with the balance of humor and Silver Pompadour. I mean, I did not expect to love this show as much as I do. How about you, Norm?
I mean, I think that's a testament to the series. I think that there's going to be a high percentage of fans. I can't speak for every single fan. And obviously by, just looking through the reactions of social media, there's going to be a segment of fans that will never be pleased by what is produced by the Star Trek fandom, and especially this new series of shows. And that's okay. Yeah. It's not for everybody, and it doesn't have to be. These shows are made for the people that need these shows. These shows are made for the people that need the message that these shows are trying to tell. And that is in and of itself that uniqueness that you have, that relationship that you're going to have with the entertainment that's being provided you. And you know what? That's the most important thing. Above all else, you get to watch what you enjoy. You get to watch what you love. And in turn, that inspires you in some way to be a better version of yourself, or a better version of yourself for humanity. That's the Star Trek message. And I think that if we can all embrace that, I think we're going to have a great next couple of weeks of conversation about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I really enjoyed the show. Do I have my agreements and disagreements? Of course I do. That's what we're talking about here. But at the end of the day, I find the show inspiring. I find the show entertaining. And I look forward to what we're going to be talking about next week. So thank you for being here, Shar. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun getting behind the mic with you again.
Same here. And Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live by our very own universal translator, Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry podcasts. If you would like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Thanks again to Shar for being here. Heather's going to be back with us next week. And thanks to everyone who joined us here. Thank you, chat. You're amazing. And I'm sorry we just never get enough time for you. And thanks to everyone who's going to join us later. We look forward to reviewing the next episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds with all of you here on Mission Log Live next week.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.